following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the July 22nd meeting of the Cary Town Council. And I want to welcome everyone to our first in-person meeting in 500 days. And I can tell you, it feels really strange up here. We feel like we're sitting in each other's lap.
It's so good to be sitting next to you, too.
It's been a long time.
Did it get smaller? Did the space get smaller?
But anyway, we're glad to be up here on the dais, and we do realize that the pandemic is far from over, and we want everybody to remain safe, but at the same time, we are enjoying being back together. Having said that, I'm going to recognize Councilmember Smith for our ceremonial opening. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor, and also a hearty welcome back to everybody, and I hope you all use dialed or whatever that phrase is. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now at recognitions, reports, and presentations part of our agenda. Our first presentation is the Cary 150 History Moment, and I'll now turn it over to Councilmember Ura.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ura.
I haven't said anything yet.
I'm just so excited about what you're going to say.
Can't wait. But tonight's topic is Let's Celebrate. So that's appropriate. Since we're celebrating Cary's 150th birthday this year, we thought we might look back at some of Cary's celebrations and festivals throughout the years. And I figure we'll start with Cary's centennial. While we're celebrating Cary's sesquicentennial this year, turning 100 years old in 1971 was reason enough for the biggest celebration in Cary's history. Warm-up activities included the creation of a centennial seal and a plate, striking of souvenir coins, caravans to neighboring towns, and the printing of a centennial book. The climatic week itself, which was May 8th through 12th, 1971, began with an hour-and-a-half parade and featured a pageant every night. Other activities included a ball with singing and dancing, a tea party, and even a beard-growing contest. That's not Jack Smith again up there, is it? He gets into each of these presentations. I don't understand it. But one legacy of the centennial is the soggy saga of the time capsule. It was buried on May 12, 1971, in front of Cary's then new federal building at 205 South Academy. The capsule contained documents and mementos pertaining to the big celebration. But after the federal building had sat vacant for several years, town officials decided in January of 1984 to move the capsule to a safer site by the flagpole just outside these chamber doors. But to their horror, they discovered that their 100-year time capsule had become thoroughly waterlogged after only 13 years.
Thanks.
Part of the contents were salvaged and placed in a hermetically sealed vault. The materials were then lowered into the earth once more to be opened 50 years from now on the 200th anniversary. But let's hope that history in this case does not repeat itself. Of course, Cary's most popular festival is the Lazy Days Art and Crafts Festival, which will celebrate its 45th anniversary on this August 28th and 29th. Lazy Days is the brainchild of Jerry Miller. Miller, a beloved Cary resident and renowned artist, suggested an arts and crafts festival when the Southern National Bank opened in Cary and sought an event to sponsor. Things like golf tournaments and tennis matches were also suggested, but an arts and crafts festival prevailed because Miller said Cary had what it took to make one go. And he correctly assumed that people with new homes would buy wares sold at such a festival, and if Cary had anything at that time, it was new homes. In addition to the artisans and the refreshment vendors, the performers at Lazy Days have always drawn large crowds too. At the first Lazy Days, 40 musicians and 20 dancers with a little German band, dressed in hats, lederhosen, and bright checked aprons, performed German folk music. They danced traditional ways, and they even chopped wood to the beat. Square dancers, vocalists, cloggers, bluegrass players also graced the flatbed stage. While the first Lazy Days was truly a sight to behold, Miller, ever the perfectionist, promised that next year it'll be even better. And he certainly delivered on that promise. Because over the last 4.5 decades, Lazy Days has blossomed into a now 2-day event that features over 300 artists and attracts about 50,000 people. Thanks to the success and growth of Lazy Days, the town established Spring Days in 1994 to be a smaller, more relaxed version of the Arts and Crafts Festival. Of course, Spring Days proved a dazzling success, which is due in part to the cooler weather, I imagine, but also the hundreds of artisans who sell their handmade and locally oriented jewelry, clothing, and decorative wares. Lazy Days, however, is far from Cary's oldest festival. 84 years ago, in 1937, a group of Cary women formed a club called the Gourd Gardeners. The following year, in the Home Ec Department of Cary High School, now the Cary Arts Center, these women exhibited a dazzling array, as you can see here, of lamps, baskets, doorstops, charm rings, birdhouses, toys, and other crafts, all made from, you guessed it, the gourds that they had grown. Hosted in Cary from that day in 1938 right through 1999, the Cary Gourd Festival still holds the title of Cary's longest-running annual celebration. In fact, gourds were Cary's first claim to fame. Emboldened by the overwhelmingly positive response to the first Gourd Festival, the Gourd Gardeners shipped a large package of their best gourds to a festival in California, and lo and behold, Cary took the gold ribbon. And soon afterwards, the club adopted the name Gourd Village Garden Club, and Cary became known as, yes, the gourd capital of the world. The world. In 1964, when the Chamber of Commerce sponsored a contest to design an official town seal, the winner, Marion Doherty, decorated the border of her entry with drawings of gourds. And at the bottom of the seal, she placed the words, Gourd Capital of the World. You can see that on the left. Although the basic design has remained intact, subsequent town leaders have altered the seal. The biggest change occurred during the administration of Mayor Bond, when the seal was degorded. The words Gourd Capital of the World were removed, and the gourd drawings were turned into decorative little curlicues. And the Gourd Village Garden Club was turned into the North Carolina Gourd Society, who since the year 2000 have been exhibiting their gourds at the state fairgrounds. If you'd like to attend this year's festival, I'm sure some of you will, it's on November 6th and 7th. In one form or another, people have risked their lives fighting fires in Cary, long before Cary was even Cary. And on May 2nd, 1953, our town rightfully honored their heroic efforts with the first annual Firemen's Day Parade. While our first responders are always worth celebrating, the parade was prompted by the purchase of a shiny new fire truck, a brand new 202 horsepower, 12-cylinder Seagrave pumper. 5,000 people lined the mile-long parade route to watch the truck roll into town. It was accompanied by other fire trucks from neighboring communities, numerous floats, and a tiny racing car, you can see that in the picture on the right, which was pulling an even tinier fire truck. The large new fire truck was presented to Cary's mayor, Waldo Rood, by Tom Stewart of the Seagrave Company at a ceremony in front of Cary High School. Stewart, who spoke briefly to the crowd, saw the occasion as the greatest manifestation of civic and community pride he had witnessed in his 50 years of selling firefighting equipment. How do you like that? Mayor Rood lauded the town's volunteer fire department and their chief, James Pete Murdoch, thanked the townspeople for their generous donations toward the purchase of this truck, because the truck cost a whopping $15,000. And obviously, much has changed since 1953. Our community has grown larger and more diverse, adding significantly to our number of reasons to host festivals, parades, holidays, and celebrations of all kinds. Just a few examples are pictured here. In 1995, Cary started partnering with the Ujima Group to celebrate Kwanzaa. In 2001, we formed a similar partnership with HumSub for Diwali. And in 2005, we also started partnering with Diamante Incorporated to celebrate events related to the Latinx community, such as the Ritmo Latino Festival and the Three Kings Day Parade. And now I invite you all to be part of history this Saturday and next, July 24th and July 31st, by celebrating Cary's 150th birthday downtown from approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 10 o'clock in the evening. There'll be entertainment, games, food, and after dusk, a projection light show on the face of the Cary Art Center. You don't want to miss this. And don't forget, in the meantime, to visit www.cary150.org for more sesquicentennial activities and events. And one of those is the Sesquicentennial Sweets Bingo. Visit a local sweet shop or bakery, maybe perhaps taste a special treat, and then pick up a bingo card. You can print one off the website also, by the way, and you might win a prize. That can be fun. But for now, thanks to those who contributed to this presentation. There would be no history moment without Matthew Champagne and Ginny Johnson, so I thank them very much. And I thank you all for listening, and that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Ed. That was a good report. So good that I forgot to adopt the agenda. So I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second, and I can just call a vote without a roll call.
No roll call?
I know, it's just shocking. How do I do this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Agenda is adopted. And we move on to our next item, which is the town manager's update.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you can see by looking around the room tonight, Town Hall has reopened to in-person interactions with our citizens for the first time since March of 2020. In fact, all staffed facilities are now open to citizens. Of course, this by no means is to say that the pandemic is over. Quite the contrary. It does, however, represent a consensus among our leadership team that now is the right time for this next step in learning how to live in a COVID world. While police, fire, public works, and other field staff never left, so to speak, most town hall staff returned to the building in early June, and that's given them important time to transition into this phase of service delivery. And certainly our experiences with parks, recreation, and culture facilities have been helpful as well. The pandemic has been and continues to be a time of experimentation for us, and I expect the strides we've made in doing business remotely will stay in place. At the same time, we know that others, myself included, truly benefit from face-to-face experiences. So I'm incredibly happy to have this day come. One of our newest experiments, in fact, we just launched it today, is the next phase of 311, where several advocates are physically located in the lobby to provide our citizens with a personal and individualized starting point for their visit to Town Hall. This will not only provide a higher level of service to our citizens who come in, but it will also make 311 more robust and potentially help Town Hall be even safer. I want to thank Dan Alt, Wes Everett, Carolyn Roman, Public Works, and the rest of the team for putting this experiment into practice. Over the coming days, I'll be providing additional updates on more experiments we're testing and look forward to your feedback. That concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stiegel. We now move to our next item, item number 3, which is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for Public Speaks Out at this forum online and on the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out through written comments, calling in, or attending in person. If you are here in person and would like to speak, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. And that's to your benefit because you get more time in a public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers, because there is a 1-hour time limit on Public Speaks Out. There's a timer on the podium, and for the 3-minute time limit, gosh, I haven't said this in 500 days. They'll initially have a green light, and when there's 30 seconds remaining, there will be a yellow light, and when it starts flashing red, that's the point I'll interrupt you, again, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. And let's see, I thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from this meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and I will ask the clerk for remote speakers. Any call-in speakers?
So we'll start with written comments, and then we'll
Okay.
go to the remote speakers, and then followed up with those who are joining us in person.
Okay, very good.
So we had 6 written comments, and you have a copy of those at your seat. Nick Barslow wrote in with opposition to Dillinger Tracks rezoning, as well as Nick Trombetta. Nick Trombetta also wrote in opposition to Roberts Road. Carla Rayner wrote in opposition to the Wellington rezoning. Barbara Lowell wrote in with opposition to zoning for business and traffic in the downtown area. Cary Gramshaw wrote in about sharing the concerns of the homeowners for the Dillinger PDD amendment, and that concludes our written comments.
Okay.
We have 2 remote speakers. Our first remote speaker is Suzanne. Suzanne, would you confirm that you are the correct speaker by giving your name and address?
Suzanne Puccio, 105 Kirkfield Drive.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, council members, for your service in this time during Public Speaks Out. I'm speaking on behalf of over 375 residents of Wellington Park and Wellington Ridge who signed our online petition opposing the rezoning of the property located at 301 Wellingborough Drive. As a reminder, 98.5% of the single-family homeowners signed the petition opposing this rezoning. We respectfully request no change to the current zoning for this property. This property is in our neighborhood. Turning off Tryon Road, you literally drive past our community's monument sign saying Wellington Park. As discussed at June's council meeting, this property is not similar to the Fonville-Morrissey building near Lockmere. There's a lake, and it's almost a half mile before any houses. This property is not similar to the office building at Weston Estates. That office building is before the neighborhood begins, and from the street, it looks like a single-story structure. What makes this rezoning request different and our opposition even stronger is simply proximity and size. This is in our neighborhood. A 10,000 square foot mixed-use commercial building in our development does not make any sense at all. This property is in our neighborhood. Many homes would have a direct sight into this 2-story mixed-use commercial building. We agree with the current way the property is zoned. Having it zoned for a nursery is what makes our neighborhood attractive. This also follows the Imagine Cary report stating that the town is interested in seeing young families in older, more mature neighborhoods to keep up the homes. Our neighborhood is over 32 years old, and by maintaining zoning of this parcel of land for its intended use of a nursery will continue to attract young families to the neighborhood. A 10,000 square foot, 2-story mixed-use commercial building does not. Having kids together, Marla Durrell Park, and the shopping plaza within walking distance makes our neighborhood a gem to be cherished in Cary. Dr. Smith says he's filling a need in our community, and I'd like to remind him that the signatures of 375 residents clearly show their disagreement with his assertion of a need for a 2-story, 10,000 square foot mixed-use commercial building. Doing a Google search with Kids Together Marla Durrell Park as a base point, Google finds over 30 wellness centers just within 2 miles. Again, we as a community see neither the need or benefit for this rezoning request. It's just not appropriate. We asked Dr. Smith to hear the voices of who he perceives as his future neighbors and ask him to withdraw his request for rezoning. Thank you for your time, and please consider taking 5 minutes of your time, council members, to drive to our neighborhood to see with your own eyes
Thank you.
why we are opposed to this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Lynn. Lynn, please confirm you're the correct speaker by giving your name and address.
My name is Lynn Yanyo, and I'm at 310 West Brookfield Drive.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you again for letting me have this opportunity to speak against rezoning in that same parcel of property that Suzanne just spoke of, which is 21 REZ04. And I do wish I could be there in person with you. It sounds like you guys are just giddy with excitement to be together, and I wish I was too. But our HOA president is with us there tonight. I am a board member and treasurer of the Wellington Homeowners Association, and I have lived in Wellington Park since 1987. I was the second house built on West Brookfield Drive. I served on the board in many early years and now again now, and I worked with the developers at the time that our HOA was put in place. At our request, the developers put in tennis courts, a sizable pool in the baby pool, the clubhouse was refurbished, and we discussed these properties as they were undeveloped around us, in particular the one that was the daycare center on the corner. We also expected at the time that I moved in here in 1987 that we would get a Town of Cary Park. My kids are now 26 and 30. The Kids Together Park went in when my kids were in middle school. It was a bit late for us as a family, but it's still a wonderful place. We have 268 families and so many children in this 30-year-old neighborhood. Pedestrian traffic is quite high on Wellingboro, Thurston, and Forest Parkway. People are riding bikes to the swimming pool and going down to the park. The only path for our children and families is to walk past this parcel. Traffic calming was added to this section of Wellingboro in the early 2000s at our HOA request, and we gathered all of the signatures from Wellington Park and Wellington Ridge to ensure the safety of our neighborhood. But even with traffic calming, that corner is a bit dangerous, with people cutting through to avoid the light at Tryon Road and Cary Parkway. I believe the zoning that we established in the 1980s has been quite successful in creating a vibrant, self-sustaining, livable community. Our homeowners have seen their properties appreciate, and we're always a neighborhood in demand. Contrary to what was stated in the last council meeting, this is not a neighborhood that is trying to avoid change or development. We are, in fact, an active HOA with continuous support and improvement for our neighborhood and our neighbors. We have no illusions that nothing will ever show up on that corner. All we ask is that it be keeping with the promise made to us all over the last 30 years and in the Town of Cary's future plans, that it would be a good fit with our neighborhood. Nothing provided to us today would make us believe this is any fit for our neighborhood at all, and hence the unanimity of our response in the petition. So after 30 years, why are we changing this? Our neighborhood would love a daycare center, and I think we've proven to be very, very patient waiting for the development to happen. The proposal as it is provided is not in keeping with neighborhood character. The only person who believes this is fit for our neighborhood does not live in our neighborhood and has never spoken to any of us, despite our outreach and offer of meetings with them. On behalf of the homeowners of Wellington Ridge and Wellington Park, I sincerely request the Town of Cary reject this requested change.
Thank you. Any more call-in speakers?
No more call-in speakers. We did have 3 in-person speakers.
Very good.
That signed up prior to the meeting, so I'll call on the first one, Donna Maynard Walker.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Donald Maynard Walker, and I live at 230 Urban Drive, the corner of East Park and Irvin, real close to downtown. I thank you for this opportunity to meet with all of you guys today. As you have noticed from my maiden name, I have a long familial history with the town of Cary. I'm sure there are several of you who are glad I'm not here to pester you about the Cary Downtown Farmers Market. I'm here on another topic. I am speaking to you tonight to encourage you to consider the numbers when you're making your decision regarding the several opportunities for affordable housing, one of which is very near our home. I was actually raised in Apex, but moved back to Cary over 30 years ago to almost exactly the same place that my family's farm was originally. Over the years, I've noticed that the demographics of our neighborhood have changed, some for the better, some for not. Many of the homes in our area were built in the 50s and later for the returning GIs, my home included. It was built in 1950. But now they're being, and they were being passed, to the second generation, even a third generation. But now I'm seeing that they're being torn down and replaced by much bigger and much more expensive places. And this is leaving the lower income families, the new families, and the workers who are the backbone of our town without any housing. I am aware that you guys have been working very hard on this, and I've seen some things. Today's had some things in the news that was very encouraging, but I thank you for all of that. I think the Carpenter Fire Station unit was good, but very small number, very small percentage. I'd like to see a little more numbers there. I think it would well serve the council to take a long, hard look at the needs of the Cary community when you're figuring these percentages out. And working in the planning stages. I know this is a difficult task, but we must take care of those who desperately need affordable housing and who are really the backbone of our community. I thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker who signed up to speak was Jason Barron.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. Here to address you on behalf of the applicants in 19 REZ 17, the Dellinger PDP. First of all, it's great seeing all of you. The call-in process was unique at best, and I kind of forgotten what you all look like. But you all look fantastic. I just want to highlight a number of changes that have been made to that case since it appeared before you at a public hearing last summer. We've been responsive to neighborhood concerns that we've heard, especially from the adjacent townhomes. We've been responsive to council issues that came up at the public hearing and after the public hearing, whether it was on other cases or our case. With respect to items that have changed in response to neighborhood concerns, neighbors had expressed a concern related to a proposed traffic circle that was included on the site and grade changes, and so we eliminated that traffic circle, that roundabout, and are doing more of a traditional T intersection. We also eliminated 5 townhomes adjacent to their townhomes and replaced them with open space. With respect to council items, there have been a number of changes that have been made in order to address council concerns. In addition to the 5 townhome reduction, there was also a reduction from 300 to 285 multifamily units. There was a change with respect to the greenway and the timing of the greenway. The greenway was moved up to the first CO of the multifamily building, so that'll essentially be delivered as part of phase 1. There's going to be a raised pedestrian crosswalk associated with that greenway. And the client also agreed to add a raised pedestrian crosswalk at an existing portion of the Spate Branch Greenway down by Trowne Manor Drive, adjacent to the Harris Teeter, essentially. There's currently a crossing that has no signage, no crosswalk or anything, and they agreed to add that in an effort just to make the greenway experience safer and more inviting. Have increased the number of electric vehicle charging stations from 2 to 4, have included LED lighting for the parking areas and done a variety of things on those lines. And then significantly have included a workforce housing condition identical to the one that you saw as part of the Carpenter Fire Station road case. So 15 homes of the 285 here, 15 of those units will be workforce units, and that Detail is included in your staff report. And then additionally, I think for the first time in the history of the town will be receiving and has received a zoning condition for active solar installation as part of the initial phase of the development. So 8 solar panels between 10 and 22 square feet will be installed either on the roof of the building or on the carports that are going to be there associated with the use. And so we're really excited about it. It's a project that is consistent with Cary's community plan, has planning and zoning board support, has staff support. It provides a mixture of housing options, whether it's townhomes or multifamily, also includes office and vertically integrated mixed use. And for a multifamily development, it includes vertically integrated mixed use that actually increases the streetscape along Piney Plains from 30 to 50 feet. And so I want to make that note and request you all support of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron.
Our next sign-up speaker is Neil Gosh.
Good evening, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem France and members of Town Council. I'm Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group at 112 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant for the Roberts Road rezoning. You might recall that this case came before you some time ago, November of last year, I believe. I explained then that the applicants for this rezoning are a pair of sisters who were inspired by everything they have seen done poorly in other new communities. They have endeavored to take on the development of a new residential community in a thoughtful manner. They wanted to build a duplex community with 20 units. My recollection is that you all were fairly pleased with the request before forwarding it to the Planning and Zoning Board. Unfortunately, my clients have learned the risks of new development the hard way, which is one of the reasons why this case has taken some time to get back to you all. Without going into too much detail, we had to take some time to figure out a question about the sewer utility, which we were able to resolve. Additionally, we got some negative feedback from the Planning and Zoning Board that we wanted to take some time to address. I think the feedback we got from PZB boils down to 3 primary items. One, there was some confusion about what exactly we wanted to build here, so we narrowed our request down to just townhomes to make it clear. 2, the level of amenities wasn't clear, so we added a commitment that there will be a gazebo within the community gathering space. And finally, PZB felt the project was inconsistent with the green level small area plan because of the proposed density and streetscape. After looking into it more, we have determined that it is not practical to do a wider streetscape on this parcel because it has limited acreage and would take up too much of the land. Moreover, it is important to understand that the adjacent community has the same streetscape proposed here, which is 50 feet. The difference between that community and this one is that the adjacent community included additional open space along the streetscape. So from the street, it appears to be an 80-foot wide streetscape, but actually that was a site plan decision. And we're just not going to be able to match that on this community. Because of that, we did revamp our requested density. Originally, we were requesting 20 units, which was 2 units over the density recommended in the green level small area plan. Because we were unable to provide a wider streetscape, we've actually dropped our unit count down to 16 in hopes of addressing the concerns of the PZB. Honestly, I was surprised by the feedback we got from the PZB because I felt the project as originally contemplated was a really good one. But I have to give to my clients, they are committed to doing right by the town and have taken PZB's feedback to heart. They were torn because the site simply cannot stomach a wider streetscape, so they dropped the density to below the maximum recommendations of the green level small area plan to kind of account for that. So I hope you all will be able to support the project tonight and approve it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Is that all the signed speakers?
That's all the registered
I
speakers.
would now invite those who did not sign up, if you would like to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jim Simmons. I've been here about 6 weeks from near Death Valley, California. And I just wanted to say hello because I'm a new resident. And I also wanted to share with you how thrilled I was with the town's participation yesterday with the chamber and the planning conference, mayor's remarks, visiting with Mr. Smith and with Ms. Robinson. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to meet everybody else. I did see Ms. Bush, but anyway, I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. And I also appreciated Mr. Stiegel's comments too, even with the embarrassing moment that he suffered through. But it was a lot of fun. And
Some of you missed it. I'll update you later.
Anyway, I just wanted to take a minute to say hello and tell you how much I appreciate coming 3,000 miles across the country to join you here and hopefully add some value. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, and welcome to Cary.
Very much.
Anyone else to speak at Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out and we'll move to the consent agenda. And that's item 4 for those who are following along. And for the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, issuance of general obligation bonds, Cary-Durham County interlocal agreement for reclaimed water supply renewal, interlocal agreement for animal services with Wake County, calling for a public hearing for 21A11 Life International Annexation. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. We now move to public hearings, which is the 5th item on the agenda. Same rules apply for public hearings that applied for Public Speaks Out with one change. Speakers now have 5 minutes for their comments. Our first public hearing is the consideration of right-of-way closing sections of Rogers Alley and East Chatham Street. And Economic Development Director Ted Boyd will present this item, and council may take action. Mr. Boyd.
Good evening, council. The Downtown Development Agreement for the Rogers Redevelopment Project, which you all approved last month, requires sections of the existing Rogers Alley and East Chatham Streets rights-of-way to be closed to optimize the public benefit of the project. As you may recall, the project site includes Rogers Alley, 149 and 159 East Chatham Street, and 109 North Walker Street. The specific portions of right-of-way to be closed are noted by letters A, B, and C, and per statute, Town Council must hold a public hearing before taking action, determining the closure is not contrary to the public interest and does not deprive any property owners in the vicinity reasonable means of access to their property. The Rogers redevelopment project will be constructed in a manner that better aligns with the Imagine Cary community plan and will result in the betterment of the remaining public property and right-of-way. Closing these sections of right-of-way will not deprive any property owners in the vicinity of reasonable access. This concludes my presentation, and following the public hearing, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. There were and are 3 opportunities to participate in tonight's public hearing through written comments, calling in, or attending in person, and those instructions were posted on the public notice, online agenda, and printed agenda. To help have an efficient public hearing, the clerk will summarize written comments first, then call on remote speakers, followed by those who have signaled to speak in person. I'll open up the public hearing now for the consideration of right-of-way closing of Rogers Alley and East Chatham Street, and I'll call on our town clerk to summarize those speakers.
We had no written comments nor remote speakers, and no one signed up to speak beforehand.
Okay, so I'll ask the audience, is there anyone here to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions, comments, or a motion.
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor.
Tell you that doing votes in person is so much nicer than doing a roll call vote. We now move to our second public hearing, item 5.2, which is 21 REZ07, Mills Residential Rezoning, and Senior Planner Anna Redling will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning tonight. and it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board. It will return to us at a future date. Ms. Radley.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. This is a request to rezone approximately 33 acres located at 7921 Mills Road in the Green Level area of Western Cary. The site is located at the corner of Mills Road and Green Level Church Road. You can see the Woodland subdivision, Sutherland subdivision, Green Level Baptist Church, and there's open space to the west. And here, adjacent to the property, are 4 large tracts with single-family homes. This image is of the site's frontage on Green Level Church Road. There are no overhead power lines located on the property's frontage, but there are overhead lines on the opposite side of the road. The property is in Cary's extraterritorial jurisdiction and is currently zoned R40. The applicant is requesting R12 conditional use zoning, which will require 12,000 square foot lots minimum, along with the following conditions. Uses will be limited to 55 detached dwellings, accessory uses, and neighborhood recreation. Lot area calculations won't include adjacent riparian area, and no driveway cuts will be along Green Level Church Road or Mills Road. Cary's GIS maps indicate a pond on the site and potential need for a stream buffer along the flat branch, which runs along the western boundary of the site. Field determination of these features will be required at the time of development plan review. Green Level Church Road is designated as a future 4-lane median divided road. The Green Level Church Road study, completed in 2019, recommends a context-sensitive design that takes into account the historic nature of the community and the land uses along the corridor. Mills Road is designated as a local road. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan proposes the Flat Branch Greenway Trail along the western boundary of the site. Greenway easement dedication is required and will occur during the development plan review process. This Greenway corridor also includes a proposed connection to the Rolling Knoll Greenway corridor extending to the west. A preliminary analysis of the request against the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds that policies in the Live, Engage, and Shape chapters apply. Live policies encourage compatible residential infill. Engage policies recommend preservation of historic resources and historic contexts, and Shape policies reinforce maintaining Cary's attractiveness and quality of development. The subject site is also located in the Green Level Special Planning Area on the Future Growth Framework map. And here is that map. The Green Level SPA boundary is shown on the map in red, and the subject site is depicted by the red star. Within this special planning area, the plan envisions mostly single-family detached housing with some small pockets of attached housing, a general decrease in density across Green Level moving from the east to the west, and an aggregate density for the area not exceeding about 3 dwelling units per acre. The applicant's proposal meets this vision by limiting development to single-family detached dwellings at a density of 1.67 units per acre. The plan also recommends that new development in the special planning area highlight key natural features, shield new development from view, specifically by using natural topography, vegetated open spaces and/or streetscape plantings, and use features and design elements that complement the historic character of Green Level. The LDO will require a 50-foot streetscape along Green Level Church Road, but there is no streetscape requirement along Mills Road. The applicant has offered a zoning condition prohibiting driveway cuts along Mills Road and Green Level Church Road, but has not proposed features or design elements to shield new development from view or to complement the historic character of the area. No historic buildings are located on the subject property, but the property is adjacent to the Green Level Historic District, and that's shown in the blue outline. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held in June. 12 property owners attended. They had questions regarding the timing for the future widening of Green Level Church Road, the size of perimeter buffers, and whether there were plans to develop additional surrounding property. Neighbors also stated concerns about noise currently being generated by riders of all-terrain vehicles on the subject property and on Mills Road, And 3 citizens have emailed and/or called since the meeting, one with a process question, one with questions, again, about the future of Green Level Church Road, and one from an adjacent property owner who is concerned about the future of the pond on the subject property, a small portion of which he believes may fall on his property. Staff mailed public hearing notification to property owners within 800 feet of the site. This exceeds both the state's and Cary's LDO requirements. And this concludes my presentation. Following the applicant's comments and the public hearing, I'm available to answer questions. And Jason Barron, the applicant's representative, is here to speak on the applicant's behalf.
Thank you, Ms. Redling. At this time, I would invite Mr. Barron forward.
Good evening again, Mayor, members of council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. Anna's done a great job of summarizing this request. As far as zoning cases that I've handled over the course of the last 5 years, this is probably the most straightforward one I've handled. It's an R12 zoning. I can't remember the last time I handled a zoning case that was R12.
You can't either.
I know, right? It's in an area that's designed for lots of that size. The overall density is less than what the green level special planning area would recommend. So I'm not going to kind of run through what Anna has already provided in terms of a summary. I do want to say that with respect to 2 things. One, with neighborhood comments that we've received, there are folks who live in that area. We've had multiple meetings with folks who live in that area to address questions and comments they've had, whether it was the ATV bikes or the pond and questions related to that. And so those are ongoing conversations that we're assisting folks with and helping them understand what's coming. With respect to staff's comment related to Mills Road treatment, that's not something we had seen before the staff report came out, but we're more than happy to work with staff around that. We're certainly planning a streetscape and a buffer along Mills Road, and we'll develop that before you see the case again. And so with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have, but we look forward to working through the process and coming back to you in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Now's time for the public hearing for 21 REZ01 Mills Residential Rezoning, and I'll call on our town clerk for a summary of comments.
Yes, we had one written comment from Eric Hoke. He wrote in to request to improve the road which leads to the proposed development, Emery Gale Lane.
Okay. No call-in speakers, I assume?
No remote speakers and no one registered to speak.
And at this time, I would invite anybody forward that would like to speak at this public hearing.
Thank you, Town Mayor and Town Council. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk in this public hearing. I live in
Could I get your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Prakashan Kotakudi. I go by PK.
Okay.
Call me PK. So address is 8617 Green Level Church Road.
Okay.
Okay.
And after you finish speaking, if you'll sign a card for the clerk so we can get you in the public record, okay?
Sure, no
All right, very well. Proceed. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, yeah. I live in Cary for the last 24 years, and I have seen Cary growing, and I'm very happy with the growth of Cary. So 4 years ago, I moved to this particular property because I was looking for a property that has privacy and a scenic beauty. So we found this property with an excellent privacy and a beautiful pond in the backyard. So at the time when we bought the property, I did my reasonable due diligence to find out that a portion of the pond falls into my property. I don't know how much percentage is a small portion, but still a small portion of the pond falls into my property, and any development to the pond will need consideration from my side as well. So, on that confirmation, on that belief, I spent a considerable amount of money to renovate the old house, more than 300K, and added several good features, and was living happily with my wife, a child, and a Belgian Malinois dog. So recently, we heard that this portion of the property. In fact, my property shares 800 feet with the subject property being rezoned, 560 on one side and 250 on the other side. So and we share the pond a little. So recently I heard that this property is being rezoned, and the pond will be drained for construction of the homes with very thin buffer to defeating the very purpose for which I bought the property, the privacy and the beauty of the water. So so now I have only one option left. I'm not opposing the rezoning because I do want town of Cary to grow. I do want town of Cary to provide homes for more people. But at the same time, I want my the town to help me to protect my interest. So at this time, when we think about that, the only option we have is to divide my existing property, that is 3.59 acres, into two areas and build a new home in the rear of my property. But I do not have any access to that area because this is a pole property and the rear do not have any access to that. So I requested the developer and Jason also to consider extending a road in the subdivision, the new subdivision to the rear of my property so that I can get road access, vehicular access. And I do not know whether I will be getting a parking approval. So I want to annex that portion of the property to town of Cary and to receive town of Cary services, sewer, water, and other utilities. So I am working with the developers and they are responding favorably, but I want to, I'm requesting everyone to help me to protect my interest to live in that area happily. So that is my concern. I hope you all consider my request. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen.
So I want you to leave your contact information because we'll have somebody contact you. Ms. Redling and other staff members will be glad to talk with you and help you through your issues with that.
Could you just point with a mouse to which property is
Yes,
this? Because I was
could
trying to figure that out.
I think it's this one.
Anna, can you help me?
It's this one.
This is the property here,
Okay.
and the pond is really here. And I believe you were speaking about getting utilities from around here.
Not that corner, yeah, but yeah, the rear of the property.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that is what I requested to on the longer side, but they reviewed it and they said they can give it from the west side.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So please leave your contact information and somebody will get in touch
Sure,
with
thank
you.
you. Okay.
Absolutely. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Anyone at all? Okay, we're going to close this public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. I have just one question. Could you bring up the slide with the stream buffers in it? Because I'm just curious about something. I don't know if that's 43 or 42. Yes, that one. So it seems like, and I don't know how wide that stream is, that's a pretty large stream, and it divides their proposal, which means they would have to get, like, approval to cross the stream, to put in a road. That seems very complicated.
Are you referring to this stream?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this may or may not be, have flow in it.
Okay,
There's
Mr. Barron's coming to help, I think.
So, he'll,
I'm just curious what you're thinking there, or what's there.
It's not a buffered stream or pond.
Okay.
Yep. So it appears that way on GIS, but they've actually had the town out and the Corps to confirm that it's not a buffered
Okay,
feature.
great.
Yep.
Other questions from council members?
I have,
Yes. Oh,
go ahead.
I just had a couple. Mr. Barron has pre-answered my first one already, which is good, and that's the streetscape along Mills Road. I'm glad you're taking a look at that. The reason why that might be important is that the streetscape on the other side of Mills Road, that subdivision, is 30 feet. And to have nothing or virtually nothing on one side looks kind of poor. So I'm glad you're looking into that for something similar. The only other comment would be that this is in the Green Level Special Planning Area, and it happens to be just across the street from the Green Level Historic District, So I would like to see the applicant make a greater attempt perhaps to follow the LDO recommendation to incorporate some elements that might complement the historic and rural context of the area. I don't know exactly how you're going to do that, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that instead of just letting it go by the boards. But otherwise, I think it's a very good rezoning request for this particular site.
I had a question about the streetscape for Ms. Redeling. When we did the area plan out here, we were, and some of you were on the council, I remember this, we were petitioned by so many homeowners at the time. They owned big swaths of land, and they're like, we don't really want Cary out here. We want this to stay rural. And so we came up with this idea that we'd have this rural streetscape that didn't have curb and gutter and sidewalk. And since then.
Swales.
We've
Well,
heard from
we
so
think
many
we-
citizens that say, when are we going to get our sidewalk? Why don't we have the same standards as the
Where's the
rest of the
curb?
town? Where's the curb? It doesn't look the same as the rest of Cary. And so I know in 2 iterations, we revised our standards. One was first for those thoroughfares, and the second was internal to neighborhoods. So with this project, will Green Level Church Road get a curb and gutter and sidewalk? And will there be sidewalks internal to this neighborhood? So 2 questions.
I believe that is the LDA requirement. I can't say for certain, but I think it's the LDA requirement now, so they need to do that, yes.
Okay, all right, because Magnolia across the street, it does not have it. And then I think the community immediately to the north also doesn't, but I can't remember now.
Yes, you're right, and that's why I hesitated, because from an engineering standpoint, I don't know how one begins it suddenly in the middle.
Okay.
So I'll have to do some research on how that transition would be handled, or how it's
Okay.
handled.
It'd be really important to me, just because I want us to slowly eat away at the mistake that we made. And then when we have new developments come in, I don't want us to keep perpetuating the same mistake. If we can correct it little bit by little bit, that would be nice.
The intent was impressive.
Yes.
The, but the on-the-ground reality was not.
Nope. It really stunk.
And there will be, I believe, it's not scheduled, the future plan is to widen Green Level. That would be an opportunity to correct some of that.
That would be great. That would be great. I would love to see that.
Just question for my clarification. You mentioned Greenway dedication. Just dedication, or are they constructing the Greenway?
That question, I don't know until that's at site plan. That is discussed. Often, that would include constructing, but the final decision is at site plan, whether it's a fee in lieu or an actual construction.
Okay. It just makes me laugh, I have to say it, about the effort to keep this area rural or whatever, but they don't want to hear the ATV noise.
I know.
And I can tell you from having property out in Smithfield, there is nothing more rural than gunshots and ATV noise.
I'll tell you what, everybody was like, we will never sell. This is always going to be like this. And then their kids sold it.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Did
before-
we have a date, just to answer the questions that came in? Is there a timeline associated with the 4-lane median separated? Is that on our comprehensive transportation plan?
Or is
I
it
don't
in the
believe- I don't
tip is a
believe there's
better
a-
answer?
Or is it in the
A
tip?
question.
Yeah.
I don't believe
Yep.
there's a timeline yet because it's not funded yet.
Yeah, it's not in 10-year plan yet. So 10-year plan's updated every 2 years, but it's not in there, right, Dana? It's not, so.
So it'd just be something good to think about. That would be a perfect place for a separated bike lane, because it hasn't been done, so you might as well do it right there. Because I can't imagine you'd need a 4-lane median divided on Green Level, in the Green Level Historic District,
Except for, this is a commuting route for people in Apex.
which is even more of a reason to have a separated bike lane.
We can talk about this offline.
Yes. Other questions or comments? All right. This will move to our Planning and Zoning Board, and we'll see it in a few months. Thank you, Ms. Redling.
Thank you.
We now move to our next public hearing item, 5.3.
I won't tell anyone, though.
Which is 21 REZ05, Echo Park Car Dealership Rezoning. Associate Planning Director Deborah Granham will introduce this item, and council will not take action on the rezoning, and it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board and returned to us at a future date. Ms. Granham.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. It's good to be back in person. I got an easy case for you tonight. This is the Echo Park Car Dealership. I'm serious.
Don't jinx it.
She just jinxed it.
This is property at 2333 Walnut Street on 15.33 acres. Subject property is highlighted in yellow. It's located across the street from Centrum at Crossroads and south of the Wake County Schools STEM site. So there were some questions about what the adjacent uses were. You may recall this was the site of the Crossroads Ford car dealership. This was approved with an activity center concept plan back in 2005. Then there was a site plan that came in 2019 and consideration of changing this to an office use. So the site was renovated, there was some additional landscaping installed and a facade renovation, but there was never a tenant that was secured for the building. So it's been sitting vacant for a few years now. The existing base zoning of the property is office and institutional, and as I mentioned, there was that activity center concept plan, and that put some really specific conditions on the zoning and the use, including prohibiting the sale of used cars. So the applicant would like to remove that condition, make some other modifications to the zoning conditions. Because this is in a destination center in a mixed-use overlay district, the process is to request a base zoning change to MXD and include a preliminary development plan. So this is the Echo Park preliminary development plan. They are proposing to retain the 30-foot streetscape that was a commitment with the original activity center concept plan and keep those existing buildings pulled up close to the street. They're proposing to retain the 50-foot type A perimeter buffers. They're offering a condition to provide 2 electric vehicle charging stations. They're making it a condition that they will retain the 3 champion trees on the subject property. And they are proposing to retain a greenway easement and completion of a street side trail. One of the things that they are also proposing is a modification to Town of Cary LDO standards for parking. It's a 71% decrease to our LDO parking standard. Now, we'd be really concerned about that if this was a townhouse community, but they want to have this area for car inventory, and we're very optimistic that they're going to need all that area for car inventory. So the visitor parking is shown in gray, and then the inventory parking area, which would be gated, is shown with that dashed blue line. The site is impacted by a stream buffer, and that's been reflected on past preliminary development plans and the site plan. And this shows you the location of the Greenway Trail on the subject property where the easement has been committed. The future growth framework map identifies the property as a destination center where uses like this are permitted and encouraged. And staff's preliminary analysis of the proposal finds that the work, shop, and shape chapters are most closely reflected by the proposal. This does support the locational needs of a new and expanding firm. We've not had Echo Park as a car dealership in Cary before. This does facilitate redevelopment of an underperforming commercial center and supports and facilitates redevelopment as defined in the shape chapter. We notified adjacent property owners within 800 feet of the subject property exceeding both the LDO and state requirements. We held a virtual neighborhood meeting in June of 2021, and the only one there was the applicant and the applicant's team. We've not had any phone calls or emails about this case. The applicant is present, and following the applicant's comments, I'll be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. At this time, I would invite the applicant forward for their comments. welcome, Mayor. It's been a long time since
It
I've
has
seen
been a
you.
long time. It's good to see everybody. Russell Killen with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh. It's great to be back in person. And I know you all, and I know how much I appreciate it. It's just nice to be able to see people's faces, read people's faces, and do this again. So my wife was very glad to get me out of the house. So I completely agree with Deborah. This is incredibly easy. I'm here representing Echo Park and Sonic Automotive Group, which is a great North Carolina-based automotive group. Jigna Gopaldas is also here tonight, and she's with Sonic and Echo Park, and this is putting a car dealership in a car dealership. There are a couple little tweaks around the edges we're doing. It is, we're asking for used cars, or really, and that is the Echo Park model, 1 to 4 year old cars. They do it great. They do it in major metropolitan areas, and this is their first in the Triangle. So staff has done a good job. We appreciate them. They've been extraordinarily helpful through this process, have done a good presentation. We really don't have anything to add, but if you have any questions, we are happy to answer them. Otherwise, I will leave you be to move on with your first meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Okay, now's the time for the public hearing for 21 REZ05 Echo Park car dealership rezoning, and I'll call on our clerk to summarize comments.
No written comments nor remote speakers, and no one has registered to speak during the meeting.
Okay, I'll invite anyone here that would like to speak at this public hearing forward at this time. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. I'll just say, and Don probably knows more about this than anybody, that people bought their cars and now they can sell them for more than they bought them for. So used cars is a big deal.
If it's still in good shape.
But you don't want my minivan with 235,000 miles?
Yours is actually still in pretty good shape. You have a good mechanic.
That's because I have a great mechanic.
I think it's interesting, was it slide 62? Was that taken when there was a car dealership? Because you can actually see the cars.
62?
Yeah. Are those all cars? I think so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's
you
what
see the
it'll
cars.
look like.
It's such a great looking building. I think it's
Yeah, I like the
very nice.
streetscape
I
improvements.
do too. It's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
don't have any-
any comments or recommendations for the applicant?
Well,
It's your district.
I
Come up with
know,
something.
I know. And, you know, I thought back in the 70s, we stopped using used and we went to pre-owned.
Oh,
That's the only thing I was thinking about. But I think we have to watch this one closely, and we have to really think about what this, we had a lot of heartburn when this was a new car place, you know, because we're trying to see this area become more mixed use, more commercial, you know, more upscale. And I'm not saying this is a bad project or anything else like that, but when the building was built, the whoever built it put the installation in so that it could be easily converted to office. And the kind of the expectation back then was that it wouldn't be a dealership type building forever. And I think there was a lot of hope that the fact that this could be, what's the right word, upfitted, you know, for office easily because a lot of the pre-work was done. So I'm just, you know, I'm just a little disappointed that we're not seeing the opportunity for this to grow with some office buildings. When you think about it, the area is just surrounded by apartments and so forth. And I just have to say that I'm going to look at this one closely because I'm still not convinced it's the best use for that area.
okay. Other questions or
I
comments?
can still promise you, Jack, that it won't be a dealership forever. It will probably change one day, so you can just hold out hope. And all those people in apartments, they need cars.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a little bit of the history. I understand, I really do, and I'm very open-minded on this one, but I think the hope was there, and I just want to make sure that we watch this closely and that it lives up to our standards.
I hear you.
You know, I think it's wise to be cautious. I will say that when we went through the process the first time, I think the applicant did such a nice job designing that building, so when you go down Walnut, right, Walnut, then, I mean, it looks so good. I mean, yeah, it's a dealership, but it sure looked nice. The whole time it was being used as a dealership, it looked really nice, and I just was very impressed by the way that they took the extra time into making the aesthetics so pleasing, and for that reason, I don't worry about having another dealership in here. I mean, the bones are really good for it, so.
And the renovation looks quite nice from the outside. It looks like an office building.
It does, yeah.
And you know, the group before had some great old classic cars in
I
there.
know.
Remember?
Yes, they did.
So cool.
And, you know, so maybe they'll have a few that we can look at when we go over there. So, thank you.
All right, other comments?
They can store mine if they want.
Could be a nice arrangement.
Digress. All right, we'll see this at a future date. It goes to Planning and Zoning Board next and probably come to us in a couple, 3 months
Or less.
or less. Thank you, Ms. Grant.
How often do we get 0 comments?
Such a minor.
0 times.
It
0 times, yeah.
It barely even made the rezoning standard, so.
Wow.
All right, we'll now move to discussion items. Our first discussion item is 6.1, or 19 REZ 17 Dellinger PD Amendment Tract 3, 4, and 5. Associate Planning Director Deborah Grannon will give a report. We'll hear the Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation, and council may take action. Ms. Grant.
Thank you. This request is a little more complex. This has been around for a while, about 2 years, in fact. When they first came in and met with us for a pre-application conference, submitted an application, and then withdrew it for a while because they needed to find out what DOT was doing with that exit ramp coming off US 1 and 64. So when you saw this request for a rezoning for 23 acres back at a public hearing in November of 2019, this is what it looked like. It was a mixed-use development with 40,000 square feet of office on one tract, 300 multifamily residential units with 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of office incorporated within that building. We clarified for you that that would be separate office, not leasing space or part of the apartments. 25 townhomes. And then there was the expectation and requirement that this road would be continued. Tryon Manor Drive, it's been on our comprehensive transportation plan for a couple decades, and we've been looking to get this road completed. But the neighbors were very concerned about traffic, so the applicant proposed traffic calming in the form of a traffic circle. That did not go over especially well because of the amount of land that you'd need to put that traffic circle in. The neighbors were very concerned about potential impacts and a lack of buffering. So the applicant amended the proposal. Instead of a traffic circle, they have proposed a raised intersection. And they have converted a portion of this property to open space. Sometimes when Mr. Barron gets up during Public Speaks Out and he talks about a case, I think, oh, he's stealing all my best lines. But tonight, he helped me realize I had a typo on this slide, and it says 275 multifamily residential units, so I'm very glad that he did clarify it's actually 285 is what's proposed, so 15 units less than what was presented to you at the public hearing. So thank you, Mr. Barron. Still retaining up to 10,000 square feet of office, the 40,000 square foot separate office tract, a reduction from 25 to 20 townhouses. The applicant still offers community gathering space, 7,200 square feet, which is twice the LDO standard. And they've committed to constructing the greenway, not just a greenway easement, but actually constructing it. And they've proposed 3 raised pedestrian crossings on that greenway. 2 of them on the site, one at the Greenway Trail, one at that raised intersection with the roads, and then they've also committed to an off-site raised pedestrian crossing. They're proposing LED parking lot lights, on-site recycling and composting. When you saw this at public hearing, they offered 2 electric vehicle charging stations. They've increased that to 4. and now they're offering 15 workforce housing units. You may recall we talked about this when the case was presented for the Carpenter Fire Station Road. This would be a 20-year commitment. They would commit to it through the HOA and recording the documents, and this would offer rents at 60 to 80% of the mean income for this area. And something new we haven't seen before, commitment to 8 solar panels. And as Mr. Barron said, they would range in size from 8 square feet up to 22 square feet and be mounted on rooftops, either the building of the multifamily or on the carports. And the reason why we asked them to commit to that was so that you knew it wasn't taking up land and open space, community gathering space. They've also proposed a parking reduction, 30% of LDO standards only for the multifamily portion of the site, no reduction for the townhouse or office tracts, and removal of 4 of the 10 champion trees on site. So a number of champion trees are being preserved in the open space and stream buffer areas, and then up closer to Piney Plains and Dillard Drive, where the development would be occurring. They're seeking to remove 4 of those trees. The property's in a destination center where we concentrate our higher densities and intensities, and this supports a mixed-use development. Staff finds that this provides housing choices for more residents, supports infill, helps to grow a workforce. In regard to good transitions and appropriate transitions, they're meeting or exceeding open space and streetscape and buffer standards. And probably one of the biggest things for our staff is that this is making connections and closing gaps, in that we've been looking for that road to get built for some time. So staff finds that this request is consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan and that it supports work, shape, live, and move chapter policies. At their March 22nd meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board found the request consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan by a vote of 5-1. I was looking to see if Chairman McFarland was here tonight.
Yeah.
He's here, so Mr. McFarland is going to give you a little summary of what the Planning and Zoning Board discussed. This concludes my presentation, but I'll be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. Mr. McFarland, it's been so long since we saw you, we forgot.
May our hearts grow fonder. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The Planning and Zoning Board, as Ms. Grannon mentioned, we did hear this case on March 22nd, 2021, so relatively recently. And we had looking to make a determination regarding the consistency with the Imagine Cary Community Plan. The board listened to both the staff and the applicant's representatives' presentations. Our questions, and some of them are summarized, I think, in the staff report, focused on the parking reduction, the EV charging stations that were being proposed, the champion tree replacement. We were also very interested in the traffic study recommendations and the justification of the applicant as to why no improvements were being offered at that time. We're also very interested in understanding the proposed NCDOT interchange and the impact that was going to have on the project, because we weren't aware of that until that hearing. And also some of the related impacts of site, the greenway connections, et cetera. The board recognized that this is a complex project, and given that in the fact that it's in an established destination center, and this is the last part of that destination center to be built out, the developer has worked within the constraints of that site. The proposal does not totally eliminate the office component to that, which was in the original plan, and it helps to maintain that. The proposed rezoning condition will basically complete the extension of Tryon Manor Drive, as was mentioned, while also offering some traffic calming features to address some neighbors' concerns. The resulting 5-1 vote in favor of this project and recommending it that it does meet the intent of the Imagine Community Plan was for all those things that was mentioned. The one opposing vote simply was to, although very supportive of many of the things that the applicant was proposing, was also expressing a desire to see more detail that would typically be reflected in a high quality of a destination center, as is outlined in the Imagine Community Plan. And it was for that reason, especially in light of already multifamily development in the area, both existing and proposed, and just to see what would make this so different. So that's a summary of our discussion. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. McFarland?
Okay.
Thank you, sir. To give the audience an idea of our process, the council process I'm speaking of now, on Mondays of a council meeting, I try to contact each of the council members to find out if they have questions or concerns. So our staff will be prepared in their report and can give a report to answer the questions. And Ms. Granna did an excellent job of hearing all the comments and questions that I heard on this proposal. At the same time, I get a feeling of where council is leaning on these proposals, and I can tell you this is not going to be unanimous. And so having said that, I think it's important, or I would invite our council members to share their thoughts about how they see this. And so I'm going to attempt that first, and then I'll let council members jump in. So some of my thoughts, and you did a great job of summarizing it, so I could write it all down in order that you presented it, so it's going to really help me. The traffic circle that was removed, I really like the traffic circle. I really hated to see that go, but the raised crossings, I like that too. So that's not a big loss. The 20 townhomes, I really prefer to see more townhomes. The office buildings, 2 office buildings, I like that. I love the LED lighting, the 4 charging stations, the solar panels. I love that. I love that we're preserving 6 champion trees. With the affordable housing, what we're seeing is one type of affordable housing lately, and there's so many opportunities to do more. You can reduce footprint, you can have ownership, or you can do rental, and all we're seeing is rental, and to me that's a little disappointing. And we're also seeing a lower percentage, and I heard the lady speak earlier about that we're settling for a lower percentage, and I would prefer to see a higher percentage of affordable housing, especially someplace right next to a massive retail center that needs the workforce. This would be a perfect place for them to live. Unfortunately, we only had a few, and so that's disappointing. And so although there's plenty of good things, the thing that really hurts me is the leasing, because we have, I want to say 3,000 apartments in a square mile, not including Raleigh, and we just needed more options. And so it just didn't meet the compelling reason for me to support this. It got close, but it didn't quite get there. And so I will not be supporting it, unfortunately. I wish there was more options in the housing, then I could have got on board with this. So that's how I feel on this one, and I'll let others jump in. Laura, you're looking at me like you want to go next.
Sure. So I think one of the most interesting things about sitting at this table is really trying to feel for the applicant and what they're trying to accomplish, as well as trying to see what's best for the community. And this piece of property is the last piece in a destination center, which is the last piece of what is a highly dense mixed-use area. So if I were at a game, as we've been before, of what would I put here, I would expect, retail, commercial, office, apartments. I actually didn't think about townhomes because you don't normally think of townhomes in this kind of really dense commercial area. So this has, for me, a lot that I love. Are there extra apartments? Sure. But it has a mix of housing diversity. It has the townhomes. It has quite a bit of office, right? So we didn't get just one office building or one apartment building. We got a nice mixture of things, and we got things that we've been honestly begging for a long time. Not just the Greenway easement, but they're actually building it, and it's going to be there on day one when people move in. We got these beautiful intersections. I'm with you. I really liked the traffic circle. They really limited the impact of the champion trees. We got commitment to recycling and composting, which is such an environmental impact. And the LED lights, and most important for I think a lot of us, is the very first solar installation. And again, this will be, with this one, should it pass, this will be the 30th affordable housing unit in less than a month, right? We haven't had that many affordable housing units committed in over a year, maybe 2 years. So I hear what you're saying, but for me, all the good is really outweighs some of the challenges that I have with it.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Yerha?
I've been trying for a while here to find something to make me support this. I always look, when it comes to a rezoning, for something that's already zoned for a PDD that we want to change the use of. Is the new use better than the existing? And I've been looking for ways to say that it's better. And there's some very good features with this. Laura, you mentioned most of them. The workforce housing, to me, is a fantastic feature. I wish there were 50 units rather than 15, however. That might have made the difference in the way I'm going to vote on this, if there were more. But overall, I just failed to convince myself. And as it stands, I really prefer the existing zoning over the requested zoning. So unless I change my mind in the next few minutes before we vote, it's going to be very hard for me to support it.
Can
How
I
about this
ask
then?
you what it would be? What were you looking for?
I think, as the mayor mentioned, I think there's too much multifamily here. I would like to see something other than 300 to 285 units. It's nice. Let's go down a little bit more. A little more office.
Ms. Robinson?
Okay, totally different perspective here. So, several years ago, we heard from Ted Abernathy, as we did yesterday, speak about some of the challenges that our region was facing, and I was going to face in greater magnitude. This was actually probably 6 or 8 years ago. And he said affordability is going to be one of those issues. So after he was done speaking, I was talking with him, and I said, what is it that makes it so challenging for some communities? And he said, it's all about supply and demand. Dallas doesn't have a problem with affordability because they have ample supply. And he said, the challenge that this region is going to have is with supply. And I've thought a lot about that because there's many different ways to attack affordability, and one of them is to have the applicant propose, offer, to have workforce units that are somehow codified to be affordable. But a really effective way to do it is to just make sure you have ample supply. So I was thinking about that because several times in the past when we had apartments come up in this area, Jack would say, there's too many apartments within this 2-mile radius or whatever, and he'd show us pictures. And I started thinking about it, like, is that really a bad thing? Is it bad that we have so many apartments in this area? So, and I apologize, I didn't write down the numbers, but in anticipation of the public hearing, I went to this community and I walked the greenways and I went into this leasing office of the apartment complex right nearby, right next to this, to the east, which is beautiful, by the way. I would live there in a heartbeat. I'd love my daughters to live there. It's beautiful. Because there's so many apartments in this area, to get a 2-bedroom unit is half the cost of getting a 2-bedroom apartment in the western side of town. If you compare it to Weston, where there's not as many apartments as you have over here, you can get a studio for the same price you get a 2-bedroom over here. I think this area is attacking affordability by having ample supply. And because of that, looking around, this is a really beautiful piece of land, and it's a beautiful community. The proposals that they have here for it means that there's going to be affordable apartments here, and they're going to be really nice. And this is wonderful for our community. So I've really kind of taken a different approach on this. I mean, I wish, Ed, that you could get behind this because I don't think the 285 units of apartments is bad for Cary. I think it's good for us to keep looking at that supply and making sure that we are attacking affordability from different angles. And I like this apartment complex, and I like the 20 townhomes. It's a nice transition to the beautiful townhomes that are to the east. I mean, they're gorgeous townhomes. And the contributions to this really beautiful greenway is fantastic. I think this is a good project.
Other comments?
Yeah. Well, I've been involved with this since literally day one, and I've been meeting with people out there for a long time. And just so you know, I don't have any influence. I said, what you really ought to be looking for is more townhouses next to you because it's good, it's symbiotic, it's the same, so we get less. And some of that's self-inflicted. I think some of the folks that live there asked for that. I'm not quite sure anymore. But the disappointment to me is that we don't have more townhouses, which typically correlates with ownership. And you took my punchline, because all I was going to say is there's just too expletive deleted many apartments here. So I don't, I still don't agree. I understand your logic, but there just are too many. And I love all the things Lori said. I mean, I really do. The EV stations, the solar panels, the greenway. This is a tough one to say no to, and it's just also a tough one for me to say yes to, because I do represent the people out there, and I feel honor-bound to represent their point. And so as difficult as it is, and as much as you said, Mayor, has been accomplished with this, I'm just going to find it difficult to support. So.
Okay. Ms. Liu?
Yeah. And just to follow up on what Mayor said about what's the number of workforce housing units would be a good number, and Ed said, 50. I mean, could we think about it like a percentage, like 10% is a good number, 30% is a good number? So rather than use a raw number, maybe for future developments, we could, suggest like a percentage of the housing units would be dedicated for workforce housing unit. That would be great. So for this project, a lot has been said in terms of the environmental features that are offered for this project: LED parking lot lights, on-site recycling and composting, the increase in EV charging stations. These were proposed in the Silverton project. All the council members liked all those features, and I'm glad to see these features in this development. Hopefully this will become our new standard. And I really like, finally, the solar panels we've been asking, and they offered the solar panel conduit for Silverton project, and this will become a reality. 8 solar panels, we would love to see more, but that's a good start, so I will be supporting this project.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for your persistence on those solar panels. You've been beating that drum for months, so you're finally seeing the fruition of all of that. Thank you.
I mean, I think most of what needs to be said has already been said, except I think the reason we don't see a percentage, whether it's 10, 20, 40, because we can't require it.
You can't ask for it.
It has to be voluntarily offered by the applicant.
Yep.
You can have a number in your mind what might satisfy you, but town can't have that as policy. We legally cannot. So I applaud this applicant, the applicant from the last meet, Carpenter, and hopefully others in the future for hearing the council and what we're looking to achieve, and for voluntarily offering that and helping us to build a more just community for everybody. I think the applicants made yeoman's work in trying to address all of the concerns, community council, and I can agree. I wish the roundabout was still there, but if I lived in one of those little bitty townhomes right there, I don't know if I want the roundabout.
I will tell you, it boggled my mind.
So
Get
it's,
rid of the roundabout.
so I get it. And again, it's to address community concerns. I don't think it's settling, I think this is really another step in the right direction, and it's just, it's baby steps, one step at a time, and I think we're getting there. So I support the project, and I hope to see many more that go above and beyond town requirements to help us build an even better Cary.
Thank you, Mr. France.
I have a question for staff. So to encourage more green rooftops and solar panels for commercial and residential buildings, I mean, what's the best way? Is there a way that our town can work with private developers and the private sectors? How can we achieve that?
Well, I think for new applications, you're doing it right now.
Yeah. They're hearing you.
That's mostly my answer. There certainly are other ways to do that through grant programs and other types of incentives, but they hear you.
But I do think it's really important to the development community that there's predictability.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so if it's going to be a consistent interest of ours, then we need to say it so that they know what they're dealing with. We need to either come up with an incentive program or a menu from which they pick to say, pick one of these environmental elements, this is important to us. But we can't just keep surprising it on the people. And for the people who aren't listening, we can't keep surprising it on them. We need to clarify this.
We're going to work with you on an exercise to, per the request of several of you, to determine which of those elements are the most important. We've talked about that at an upcoming meeting. And I've had conversations, I know Deborah has another planning staff about, the conversations that have taken place. And I said, I don't think it's going to go in the other direction.
So we actually have started with our DRC meetings, giving a heads up to the applicants. We started that over a month ago and letting them know what some examples are of zoning conditions they could consider if they would like to volunteer those. Again, as Councilmember France said, it's very important we remember these are voluntarily offered. So we're cautious with just providing those ideas and sharing them. And then we're going to start incorporating more information about environmental concerns in the staff reports going forward and having a section for the engaged chapter. So you'll be seeing that as well. But we're asking applicants, we didn't get any new rezoning applications this month, but with the next month, we're asking them to actually address that in their justification statements and give some thought to how they are considering environmental issues. So you'll be seeing more of that.
Appreciate it.
Right. And for the record, those conversations I've been having, representing the environmental board with both the assistant town manager, Dana, and Sean. So a lot of this, exactly what you said, I think we're going to have to get to a point where we have to give the community some sort of guidelines or standards of expectation. And so I'm happy to see all of the universal support here, that we just keep moving in that direction. So I just wanted to let folks know that.
I have a quick question. I know planners belong to an American Association of Planners or something, I don't know what you call it, but has there been conversation or publications coming out about the advent of EV charging stations? I mean, right now it seems like yeah, we might put that in, we might not, but it seems like the world is going in a direction where people are saying it's going to become a necessary component for these different developments. So
Yeah,
what is the talk on the street about that?
Well, what we see a lot of is comparing notes, different municipalities. There's a listserv for all the different planner professionals across North Carolina. So comparing notes with what other municipalities are doing, whether or not they're making it an ordinance. We're comparing notes with Apex, as Councilmember Lou knows, what are they doing? What are they requiring? So yes, lots of discussion, and there will be more. And these things come up at the conferences as well. So right now, it's mostly voluntary when people in this area are offering those. But whether or not it becomes an ordinance standard, you'll see it if it's proposed for an ordinance amendment, and we start to introduce those things.
Okay. In our work with, is it Waze that we're working with, right? Is it one of the mapping?
With one of, on the real-time mapping thing?
Yeah,
as
the
far as
real-time mapping
parking?
stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we add EV stations on there? I mean, I only asked this because when my brother brought his Tesla down 2 weeks ago, he didn't know where to go to get it charged. And I was like,
Well,
I
it's
don't
in
know
the
how to find
Tesla.
that. Yeah.
It's on
Oh,
the
is it on the
screen.
Tesla thing? Okay, well, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
next year there's something
It was
Don
new,
may
he
know,
didn't
but
probably know that
Okay.
yet, in his defense.
I'll show him next time.
30 or so new models that are coming out in the next current year with, so it's well beyond even Tesla now.
Yeah.
Of electric vehicles. I do know in our current deck planning that we're also anticipating drop-off spots for the ride shares in decks and making space for those areas as well, because that's become obviously so big.
Okay.
That's what all the kids are doing.
So may I make a motion?
I was actually going to say that. Are we ready for a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the statement of consistency as attached to the motion document of 19 REZ 17 Dellinger PDD Amendment, Track 3, 4, and 5, and adopt the rezoning ordinance 19 REZ 17.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Probably a
Aye.
show of hands,
Aye.
too.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Motion carries 4-3. Thank you, Ms. Grant.
Thank you.
We now move to our next discussion item. It's actually going to be the next two discussion items. We're going to include the rezoning and the annexation. And that's 20 REZ05, Roberts Road Residential, and 20A04, 121 Lennox LLC, and Smultron LP annexation will be presented together, and Aaron Puckett will give this report. We'll hear from the planning board, and council may take action. Ms. Puckett.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to see you all in person. This is a request to rezone approximately 6 acres at 7436 Roberts Road. As you may recall, you held a public hearing for this request in November 2020. The request was then initially scheduled for decision at your February meeting, but the applicant requested it be removed from the agenda at that time to resolve issues surrounding the sewer connection. There is an annexation request associated with this property, as the mayor noted, 20A04. As a reminder, since you will be voting on both the rezoning and annexation requests this evening, if the council seems likely to deny the rezoning request, you may wish to give the applicant a chance to withdraw the annexation request. The site is located on the north side of Roberts Road, between Green Level Church Road to the west and NC 540 to the east, and Green Level High School is adjacent to the west. Cary's GIS shows that there is a stream buffer present on the site, but field determination of this feature is required at time of development plan review. The property is currently located in Wake County and is zoned R40 watershed. The applicants are requesting to rezone the property to transitional residential conditional use and watershed protection overlay district. The applicant has proposed 7 zoning conditions. These include a maximum of 16 dwelling units, or approximately 2.7 units per acre. This has been reduced from the original request of 20 units since the Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Limiting uses to townhouses, neighborhood recreation, and associated accessory uses. This condition has also been changed since the Planning and Zoning Board, as a number of residential types were proposed as options in the original condition. No building shall contain more than 2 contiguous dwelling units. Residential buildings shall have a minimum separation of 20 feet. Each dwelling unit shall provide a garage for at least 2 vehicles. Vinyl siding shall be prohibited at time of initial construction. And a gazebo will be provided within the community gathering area. This condition was also added since the Planning and Zoning Board meeting. In staff's analysis of the request against the Imagine Cary Community Plan, we found the policies in the Live and Shape chapters apply most directly, as well as goals and policies of the Green Level Special Planning Area. The request would provide a unique housing type in this area and proposes to do so on an infill site surrounded by existing development to the east and west and the future park to the north. The proposed use, townhomes with a maximum of 2 units per building, provides a logical use and form transition between the adjacent detached residential subdivision to the east and the school to the west. The subject property is located within the Green Level Special Planning Area in the neighborhoods east of Flat Branch. This area encourages predominantly detached residential uses and an aggregate density of about 3 units per acre. This area also supports smaller lot residential types such as townhouses when located in pockets and shielded from view of thoroughfares. The proposed development of this relatively small property, surrounded by existing development and the future park, appears to generally meet the intent of the special planning area. We note that the applicant would be required to provide the typical 50-foot type A streetscape, but they have not offered any additional screening along Roberts Road. So the policy of ensuring new development is well screened from thoroughfares, while somewhat subjective, may not be met, as well as other nearby developments in Green Level, which do provide additional screening. The adjacent detached residential neighborhood, for comparison, provides a large open space parcel in addition to the 50-foot streetscape, which creates a much larger vegetated separation from Roberts Road.
While the proposed use and form on a small site appear to meet the intent of this area of green level, an increased streetscape or additional open space would have helped more directly address the special planning area recommendation regarding the screening. In evaluating this rezoning, both staff and the Planning and Zoning Board analyzed this request extensively against the Imagine Cary Community Plan. While this is a relatively small development on an infill site, the location of the property within the special planning area warranted extra attention, since these areas have unique characteristics and give more specific guidance. Ultimately, staff found that the request is consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan, as it does support policies in the Live and Shape chapters. In regards to green level, the density is within the recommended aggregate density of 3 units per acre, with the recent reduction in the maximum unit count, and helps facilitate the green level transition policy of decreasing residential densities from east to west. The special planning area also speaks to shielding new development, and specifically those denser residential lot pockets from view of thoroughfares. And a number of less dense developments in this area developed under the Conservation Residential Overlay District, so they did provide additional screening via the provision of additional open space. Thus, if this request had offered a slightly wider streetscape or additional open space, we would feel it more directly addressed that SPA recommendation. But when we weighed all policies, we do feel that the proposal is consistent with the plan when taken as a whole. At their December meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board found the request inconsistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan by a vote of 7-2. Since that meeting, the applicants have made several modifications to conditions which were noted previously, including limiting the residential type to townhomes, limiting the total units to 16, and providing a gazebo as part of the community gathering area. This concludes staff's presentation. At this time, I'd like to once again invite the Planning and Zoning Board Chair, Dan McFarland, to the podium to summarize the board's comments. And after those comments, we're happy to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant's representative is still here as well if you have questions for them.
Thank you, Ms. Pepper.
Good evening. As was mentioned, we met on December 14th, 2020, in person, or no, we were still virtual back then, to talk about this case. And the full board listened to the case. The questions and the subsequent discussion was about density and the reduced street side buffer. Those are the two big issues. Overall, the board found it was generally supportive of this type of use in this area, but the resulting 7-2 vote to find that this case at that time, as was presented to us, being inconsistent with the plan, was about regarding the issues of density as well as the lack of open space, particularly regarding the street buffer. And so, any questions?
Questions?
Just for clarification, the density issue, that was because 20 units were proposed and the plan recommended a maximum of 18?
Yeah, because it was calling for a density of 3.3 units. And so exceeded in that area, and looking at the fact that it was a small area that.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
Well, I have a question. So, I mean, we can only speculate, but do you think that the Planning and Zoning Board would now recommend saying that it's consistent because of the density reduction and the addition of the gazebo, or like, do you have any sense on that?
You know, again, speculating.
Yeah.
But going from the 20 to the 16, I think it would have made a difference, because in our discussion, I know that there were some individuals that said even if it 18, we're doing the math and so it may have, yes, it may have had an influence.
Okay, I may have missed this, but the, originally they were proposing duplexes and then they changed it to townhomes, limit to contiguous. What in the world is the difference between that, and does it matter to the Planning and Zoning Board?
We were just asking, we didn't have an issue we were just trying to get clarification. It would have been helpful to have had more clarification, whether we're talking about duplexes, townhomes, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think our focus was on the number of units, regardless of the type of units.
Okay.
Just doing the number of units on that acreage, doing the math, and it came out at 3.3, and it just exceeded it, and, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Mr. Ghosh, could you speak to the difference between a townhome and a duplex?
A townhome, limit to contiguous, right?
Right. That's a duplex.
That's a duplex.
Sure thing. It's the way the legal lot sets up for different types of housing. So the original zoning condition would have allowed for townhomes, duplexes, patio homes, I believe they're called. It had a laundry list of housing types on the original condition, which I think in fairness, was quite confusing. But the reason we were trying to leave it flexible at that time was because those definitions those uses have different definitions, which refer to different things, and we weren't far enough in our planning to know what kind of houses these would be specifically. Since then, the applicant has, worked with the builder and developed a plan. So now we know they're not going to be patio homes. They're going to be, I think what people would see is townhomes, and yes, still limited to only 2 per building, but the difference is each unit is going to be on its own lot, so that's a legal townhome, and that's the way it's set up that way. It was confusing. There really isn't a difference to regular people. When you look at this, you would say, oh, that's a
So
duplex.
it looks the same, but there's a difference in the ownership of the land on which the property sits?
Yep.
Councilmember Robinson, a duplex is 2 units on 1 lot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Comments?
Yes.
Well, first, applaud the Planning and Zoning Board for, doing the math and getting it right and finding out that, it was a little bit too much per the green level special planning area. Unfortunately, I think this is where the special planning area got it wrong. If there's any place that I think we should be encouraging a little more density and a little bit more affordable type of housing is next to a school for hopefully people with younger kids that might want to choose to live there, and/or people that might want to work at the school or so forth. I think limiting this to 16 is a missed opportunity. I personally don't see a thing wrong with 20. I really don't. I don't see how 4 units make or break this project. And I just think the green level special planning area got it wrong.
Other questions or comments? I would ask council, is anybody feeling they're having difficulty supporting this? Because we want to know if there's 4 of us that feel that way, then we probably don't want to try the rezoning.
Question for clarification, and I think I know the answer. Could council vote for 20 units if we wanted to? Or since they proposed 16, we can't?
And you cannot.
The proposal on the table is 16.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I just want to make sure. All right.
Other questions or comments? Okay, I think we can proceed with the motion if anybody feels the desire to do so.
Is it the one, do we have to, is it as written here, Lisa? Okay, I'll read it. I move that we adopt ordinance for 20A04, Lennox LLC in Smolton LP annexation. Approve statement of consistency is attached to this motion document for 20 REZ05 Roberts Road Residential, and adopt a rezoning ordinance 20 REZ05.
There's a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you, Ms. Puckett. We now move, that concludes our regular agenda, so we'll now move into closed session. I'll recognize Councilmember Bush for a motion.
Pursuant to GS 143-31811A 1, 3, and 6, I move that we hold a closed session to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment or conditions of initial employment of one or more individuals or prospective public officers or employees, consult with attorneys employed by the town and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to GS 143-318-10E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we now move to closed session.
Which one do you want to go?
We'll reconvene the council meeting at this time. We have no other business, so I declare this council meeting adjourned. Thank you.